Well, g'day. Welcome to another episode of the Apprenticeship Toolbox. And again, this series of videos is simply designed to put before you resources that are helpful in the quest for living faith in the real world. Today, I want to have a look at the first podcast. Now, I guess to start with, we need to talk about podcasts. What are they? They originally were invented by Apple as a form of audio entertainment for the iPod, and it's a way of distributing audio that are mostly topical, and they're a little bit like specific radio programs, but they've gone on to have a life of their own and far moved beyond Apple. But I'm fairly sure that every phone, every tablet, and every computer has access to some kind of podcasting software, and most podcasts are available on all the different platforms that are available, and also available on the web. For me, podcasts are an important part of my life. My wife, about 10 years ago, no, it wouldn't have been that long, maybe 6 years ago, purchased for me a little round rechargeable waterproof speaker that gets plugged onto the side of our shower, and while I'm having a shower, I'm usually listening to a podcast. When I'm in my car, I'm usually listening to a podcast, and what I appreciate about podcasts is you can choose the kinds of people you want to listen to, and I have a real mixture. I'm currently listening to about 26 different podcasts, most of which have weekly episodes. Some of them are light-hearted and fun. One of my favourite ones is the West Wing Weekly, and at some point I'll probably try and work out a way to bring the deep theological significance of the West Wing into this video series, but not for now. But some are thought-provoking and challenging. And I want to introduce you to one that's been, for me, a podcast I've listened to for the last 4 or 5 years now. It's by a UK radio station where it's based from, and the host is Justin Brierley. It's called Unbelievable. I'll play the first few seconds of a current podcast for you, and you'll get a sense of how it kind of sounds.
A very good afternoon and welcome to Unbelievable. I'm Justin Brierley, your host for the next hour and a half, bringing you another conversation that matters between people from different perspectives, looking at the subject of intelligent design and irreducible complexity. Today I'll be
Okay, so there you go. That's Justin Brierley. That's his voice, and you already hear in the setup kind of what the podcast is about. It's been around since 2007, and the basic format is they get people on either sides of an argument, and most often it is someone coming from a Christian perspective and someone coming from a non-Christian perspective. Sometimes they'll have someone coming from a Catholic perspective and some coming from a Protestant perspective, or someone coming from an Orthodox Christian perspective and someone coming from a Mormon perspective, or people from different perspectives, and they get them together and mostly have a friendly dialogue, but raising all kinds of issues. And the reason I find it helpful is I can't think of a single issue that people wrestle with that these guys haven't already engaged with. And when they engage with it, they have the top experts in their various fields. And so they've had people like atheists like Richard Dawkins, and actually most of the Christopher Hitchens, who's now passed away, most of the prominent people who are out the front of what was called the New Atheism, has sort of died off at the moment, have all appeared on the show. They've had most prominent Christian authors and thinkers. They've had N.T. Wright a few times, who I really respect, but they've had a whole host of authors, some Australians, and even recently an Australian who's been prominent in fighting for refugee rights, Jared McKenna, has been featured on the show. What I appreciated about it is just the the way in which Justin Brierley is able to help people engage in dialogue. Now, sometimes you'll be listening and it won't sound like a dialogue. Sometimes it does get a bit intense, and often around some of the hot button issues, but they don't avoid those hot button issues. So there's a number of episodes about same-sex marriage on there and different sides of that debate. There are all kinds of debates around science and religion. And some of the top scientists are dialoguing about how faith relates to science or not, and both sides of the argument. I think for me, what's been important for me about this is often in the public square, if you're coming from a faith perspective, people think there's something wrong intellectually with you, but really, that kind of public story is just not true. You see in this podcast some of the most brilliant minds in the world in debate, and that's how it should be, and people who have thoroughly worked through their faith, working out what does it mean. And you'll see all kinds of there's a number of really helpful podcasts about the historical Jesus and what do we know from history as opposed to what do we know from the Bible. There's the nature of the cross and what it means and different takes on that, all kinds of different topics. And the people who are talking on this podcast are people who are well researched and know exactly what they're talking about. So I would recommend, if you're the kind of person that has questions, who likes to think through some of the topical wrestles, you can just scroll through. One of the benefits of any podcast is you can just click on the available episodes and you'll see there are literally hundreds of them from 2007 right the way through. And so here's some examples. There is an interview with Caitlyn Jenner on transgenderism, and then the Christian and trans debate about transgenderism. John Lennox, who's one of the great mathematicians from Oxford, talking about the nature of faith and what it means to be a Christian in the academic context. Nabil Qureshi, who recently passed away, talking about Muslims and Christians. A debate between Tim McGraw and Bart Ehrman, who are well-known Bible scholars, but very different, coming from very different perspectives. A question of do Mormons believe in grace? Is a whole episode about that. Two views of suffering from the Christian faith. So these are just some. There are just so many different topics there. There's another topic there. Is God a God of wrath? What I would encourage you to do, if you ever at a point where you think, this question is a really big question for me, scroll through there and search for the relevant podcasts and listen to people who have thought through their positions and aren't just reacting. People who are working stuff through. Often you'll find you'll have your point of view challenged, and it's not often in this that you'll hear, because mostly the people who are in debate are people who have thought long and hard about their positions, and they don't often seem to change one another's minds, but the level of dialogue is important. So I think as we move into the future, as the Christian church generally, we need to be ready to engage in real dialogue, not just write people off. That's what I appreciate about this podcast. It's not writing people off. It's creating a platform for real dialogue. And all of us have to be ready to dialogue with people who don't think and talk and act like us. And so I can't recommend it more highly. It is the Unbelievable podcast. A quick Google search will help you find it. And I would recommend it's one of the ones that you add to your regular podcast listening. Or if you're not a regular podcast listener, it's one that I would encourage you to consider listening to from time to time. Even if you just listen on the web, it's available there too. So until next week, that's our apprenticeship toolbox for today.